Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome to the episode 2 recap of the Mole Victory House. I am one of your two amazing hosts, Drew, joined as always by my co host, Zach. Zach, how are you today?
I'm doing amazing as always. Good to see you again, Drew.
Good to
Excited for
see
this
you.
week.
Oh, of course. It was a great episode.
Yes. And we're going to jump pretty much right into it, but we're going to let you know now, spoiler alert. If you don't want to hear any spoilers, now's the time to stop watching. We do have a special guest, so let's go ahead and bring them on now. Hi,
Yes.
Michelle.
Hello, world.
Michelle, we are so excited to have you on and discuss all things the Mole Victory House.
I am so
Yeah.
excited to be here. I had no idea that this sort of content existed for fan-made series. So like the idea of like this is just great. I did want to say before we get started, I wanted to say thank you to Carlo for all of the hard work that he put in and for casting me and for like giving me such a great edit. Like, you know, I got a great storyline, and it was because like you were kind enough to give it to me. This has been a great experience. I have admired watching like you direct and do everything behind the scenes, and I feel like I've learned a lot from your example, and you just lead with such like kindness and benevolence, and it's just this has been a great experience. So yeah, and also thank you, Drew and Zach, for having me here. This is great.
Of
Props
course.
to Carlo.
Yes, props to Carlo. So we are going to give a hour-long recap of this episode. And of course, throughout, Michelle can give us some insider information, some behind-the-scenes things that we may not have seen, some stories, some production info. I know last week we had a couple of questions about how the game was run, so hopefully we will get some of those answers. But let's jump in at the beginning of the episode. Of course, we get the recap from episode 1, and then we jump straight to my favorite player of the season. I have declared it officially that Joel is my favorite player of the season so far. I love Joel. Zach, what did you think of all that Joel had to say?
Well, I mean, I think Michelle had some choice words to say. Not choice words, but she said she saw right through his, or she's seeing right through his bullshit. And I feel like I would have been kind of the same way, but I fucking love Joe. Love Joe.
He was a champ, right, in Quidditch. Like, I don't know how well the footage showed it, but he got dog piled on at some points, like just piles of people just throwing themselves at him, you know? And like you said, you know, he's a skinny guy, like he's not typically athletic, but like he did a good job, you know? I would have not been happy if that was me, but he did great.
I remember there was a quote that he said, and it even brought it up in the caption. Oh, we're gonna play like this, okay? So then he was like, "All right, I wasn't gonna play like that, but if you want to play, we'll play."
Yeah, I mean, he gives good confessionals. He has a great sense of humor. I think my favorite part was where, like I had said this in my confessional, but it's better to show rather than to tell, about his like blurting out Quidditch or like Harry Potter nonsense words like during the spell rounds. I mean, I'm teasing him for a while about that. So it was great to see it like captured on film. I loved like his commentary of like, yeah, I think I summoned a demon in the house. Like that was great.
Oh yeah, that he gives such great confessionals. I mean, honestly, everybody on this season is giving pretty good confessionals. But I just love Joel and his lie that he tried to pass off and was seen through immediately.
Yeah, I mean, we had these bios at the beginning, and as part of the silver screen, one of the questions that they asked us was like, you know, what's your favorite movie? And he was like, yeah, I don't think I like movies. So I think his answer was like Survivor or Big Brother. And I was like, well, that's an interesting choice. And then when he chose to bring it up later as a movie, I was like, Joel, like you may consider this to be a movie, but I promise you no one in production does.
Right. So this episode is Harry Potter episode. Last week we had the Hunger Games. This week we have shifted to fantasy themed Harry Potter. Michelle, are you a Harry Potter fan?
So one of my favorite memories just in life was the summer where I was a camp counselor and book 5 had come out, and I did not order a copy, but I was jealous of everyone who did. And I remember being in the dining hall when the packages were delivered, and it's kind of like the scenes in Harry Potter where like people get mail, you know, and the owls come and they drop all the mail. And I was just like, mail, and you look around and everyone has these packages and they're opening up the books, and it's, you know, kids from ages like 7 to like, you know, the counselors, and everyone has these books, and it's like, man, like everyone's really into this. And I remember one day like sitting out on a hillside and like someone's playing like Spanish guitar, and I'd managed to borrow a copy from a friend, and so I'm reading Harry Potter like under a gorgeous blue sky. Like, I like Harry Potter. I'm not like a fanatic of it by any means, but I do enjoy it. And it's something that I'd read. I had not read Hunger Games. I was like, yes, a reference that I get.
Zach, what are your thoughts on Harry Potter?
Not me, not Hermione, you. I am a fan of Harry Potter. So when I saw it was Harry Potter and then houses were getting split up into houses, I was like, I should have saw that coming because all the books were the same colors of the houses. So, which I'm rolling right into that. Sorry.
No, go.
House splitting into 4 houses. The colored journals. Wine was charisma. Blue was uniqueness. Green was nerve, and orange was talent, which sounds a little familiar.
Sounds a little
It
familiar.
actually did not sound familiar to me at the time because I had only seen a handful of RuPaul episodes. I just got Paramount Plus and like finished watching season 1, and like when it came up like on Monday, I was like, oh.
So yeah, I said it is Harry Potter week with a splash of RuPaul in it. But I also like how it was wine and not red. It is wine.
Oh yeah, very, very specific. I will also say that I really liked this method of splitting them up into houses because it was more or less randomized. It wasn't people being able to choose their groups, which I really enjoyed.
Agreed.
I think that Dr. Jamie had sort of like meta figured it out because I remember Dr. Jamie specifically being, I saw that you and Steven had both chose wine, so like I'm going to choose, or maybe Jamie told me go choose wine or something like that, and I was like, I was already going to because I love purple, you know, and I love red. So, but either Steven or Jamie kind of figured it out, and I was like, all right, good call.
Good eyes, good eyes.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm blown away. Like sometimes I think I have an attention to detail, and then I watch things like The Mole, and I'm like, yeah, I would have never thought of that. So good on the people who do that, because I would absolutely just be like, oh, I really like green. I'm just gonna take a green one. Like,
exactly.
So we jump into our first task of the day, which is Quidditch, and that involves 2 houses pairing up and facing off 7-on-7. And I'm going to be quite honest here. I was lost the whole Quidditch game. I was like, I don't remember who's on what team. I don't know who's scoring points. All I was paying attention to was Joel being hilarious.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why they had given us those masks was to help us keep track like during the challenge of who was on what team. So a couple of people like kept it later, you know, some people were wearing it on their head or like around their neck like later in the round. But that was like sort of our version of wearing jerseys, you know, our dollar store jerseys. Yeah.
I like that. That was very clever.
Yeah.
They did also find out when they were split up into houses that the house with the most points gets Joker, and with the least amounts of points gets a disadvantage. But Quidditch, I agree with you, Drew. I wrote the note that it seemed like it was a really small space to play Quidditch in. So it was kind of like watching, I mean this in the nicest way, like 5-year-olds playing basketball, like where they're just trying to like hold the ball and run with it and that kind of thing. I felt like if it was a bigger area, we would have seen, I think Lance had mentioned it. I thought we were going to be like passing the ball or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think if it was a bigger area, we would have seen that, and it would have been potentially a little bit more difficult in that aspect. But Lance passes to Nathan and scores the first point.
Yeah, I've been joking about the whole time. I was like, guys, like if someone gets hurt, like your insurance isn't going to cover this. Of course, there's no insurance. Like this is a low budget production. Like there's no insurance for anything. And if I remember, I think that like someone actually did get hurt. I think Katie had eye issues for like part of the weekend as a result. I may be misremembering this with another task. But yeah, it was tiring. Like we weren't out there for that long, but I was just like, man, like I'm not cut out for this. Even in that small space, I was like, that was a lot of running.
Yeah, I definitely think that the small space was probably a bit of an equalizer for the teams, because the team with the taller guys, I think if it were in a larger space, probably would have had a much larger advantage, even though those teams were randomized.
Yeah. Joel held on to that ball hard.
So did Katie. She got dogpiled on a bunch too. Yeah.
Yep. And I was also wondering, like the whole time I was watching, I was like, I still haven't seen any of the Seekers. So I don't know we didn't see footage of the Seekers, so I don't exactly know what happened with the Seekers. We know that the Golden Snitch was
Stacey
not
and Jamie
found.
ran around, and both of them came out empty-handed. Neither one of them found the Golden Snitch.
Crazy to me because that Golden Snitch looked pretty big.
It was like hidden in a pile of leaves or something like that, like right by the house. I don't know. Would I have found it? Who knows? But they definitely were both like, nope. It's okay. Like, I don't know how. None of us could see them, so we didn't have any way of tracking. Like, are they just like having a cigarette in Stacey's case? Or like a mimosa for Dr. Jamie's? Like, we didn't know.
Right. And Stacey mentions like somebody said something about how Stacey was good at finding idols in a Survivor game, and Stacey was really confident in her ability to find it. And then she mentions later that she looked in the area but didn't think that they would have to dig, but it was like just under a pile of leaves. So I don't know, that was a little sus to me. But also, like, when you're in that high pressure situation, like, I understand that like you are going to overlook things.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, look, they both can't be the mole, right? It's impossible for there to be two. So at least one of them tried and came up empty-handed, or maybe they both, were like, whatever,
Right.
Okay, so Michelle, here is a question that we had kind of last week on the production side of things.
Yeah.
Does production tell the mole how to sabatage the tasks, or is it up
I
to the
don't
mole?
actually know that. Like, from what I heard from previous seasons, like maybe before tasks the mole would be given a debriefer, but I don't know if like ahead of time the mole was told about all the tasks. I don't know the answer to that. I'm kind of curious about that myself.
Okay, because
I
know
the mystery in it still.
Yeah, on the show, production tells the mole like, okay, in this task, you need to be on this team, you need to do this. And then obviously there's like backups or whatever. But I don't know. That's just a question.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like the mole things were done like on the fly. But I could be wrong.
Gotcha.
Love that. Either way.
I will take a note to tell the group chat that this is a question that we want answered.
Yes. We are curious over here. Nathan threw again, and Sabrina had a block there. So good on Sabrina for blocking, but Nathan did end up throwing and scoring again. The first one was actually in a neutral hoop. The second one was a negative hoop. So it was -$5 in that one. And again, they didn't know what hoop stood for what. So they just knew they needed to get the ball in the hoop because it was 20 points per ball.
Yep.
So house points. They wanted those house points. The other last thing that I put down for Quidditch is our lovely special guest yelling, "Fuck you." That was her strategy. Get it.
Obviously a successful one.
Yeah. Look, I mean, they put me on Team Charisma, right? So whatever I lack in athletics, let's see if we can make up in charm. And surely charm means like being yelled at, "Fuck you," by someone. You can't say I didn't try. This season's rated R rating was probably brought to you by me. I mean, I don't know if it actually is an R rating, but there were in the last season, Audrey's parents and Joel's parents like complained about the profanity to Carlo. So this season, like before episodes started airing, Carlo's like, make sure to warn like your friends and family that like this isn't, like a G-rated series.
We know.
Well, yeah, the intimidation strategy unfortunately did not seem to pay off for you.
Neither did try to convince Katie that I was her friend and she should just give me the ball because that's what friends do.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Team Green Gots won that one. I think that's what they deemed themselves, Team Green Gots.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting team name. Like, I get that it's Harry Potter. I really do. But of all the things that you could have picked, you picked Green Gots? That just
I think it was kind of a pun on the fact that they had like Team Green in there, and like Green Gots kind of sounds like green. And plus like they're trying to get like money. For the pot, right? And Green Gots is the bank. So
okay, that makes a little more sense.
My team didn't even try to get a team name. We're just like, all right, we're too busy being like, we're gonna win.
Your team's just like, we're just gonna yell at people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you could tell that, like, choosing me to be a chaser is probably a mistake when, like, Sabrina was tossing the ball towards me, and I was like, because I'm catching it. Like, people that, like, make sound effects when, like, balls get thrown their way are probably not great to put in a game. So my, like, fun fact was at the end. So the rules were, like, no traveling with the ball, right? If you get the ball, like, no troubling with it. You can throw it to other people, but you yourself can't move. Man, I didn't remember any of this at the end. Like when I had the ball, like I'm trying to like move like towards the hoops, like completely forgetting that this is illegal, and like I have a bunch of people who are like grabbing onto me and trying to like drag me back, and I'm just like, part of like my like yelling obscenities is like me being like, I'm gonna have like the kind of like yelling hi-ya before you karate chop and just be like, we're gonna move you, like fuck you, and then at some point someone goes, is Michelle cheating? Should she be moving with the ball? And I was like, oh, that's right, there are rules in this game. And then time ended. And I was like, okay, now there are actually no repercussions for my cheating.
Saved by the bell.
Yeah, I totally forgot there were rules in this game. All I could think was ball hoop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else with Quidditch?
Not from. I feel like I've said everything I want to say.
Cool. Moving on to potions with Professor Carlo.
I loved this task. I think this is a genius task. This is the perfect opportunity for the mole to mess up but blend in, because so many other people are obviously going to mess up. But then you also have those really competitive people who are going to figure out how to game it. This is a great task. Carlo, this is a good task.
Yeah, my team didn't even think about, like, I have this sort of tendency that when I get an assignment at work, I'm just like, all right, let's get it done with whatever's the first thing that comes to mind. And it takes like a good manager to be like, Michelle, like, let's strategize for 5 minutes, so I did not think to be like, yeah, like, how should we figure out who should get which ingredients? It was just like, memorize all 4 and go, so that was maybe not the best. Maybe we should have strategized. When I heard the other team say it on webcam, I was like, or like in the episode, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, should have thought of that. It was a great task. It offered so many chances for the mole to sabotage. Like we were getting reports of like people are taking like the tags off of the potions. People are like throwing the potions under the car. Like it was just, yeah. And then the names were already confusing. It was a great task. Great task.
Yes. I was just, for the most part, taking notes on who was getting things correct and incorrect in this, just to see if it was able to deduce down to a mole activity at all. But like we're saying, it's so easy for so many people to get things wrong in this. But I think Jamie was the weak link on that one and getting the most wrong. That's to Jamie.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because Jamie was a quadruple major in undergrad. Dr. Jamie just finished, I think, their 3rd master's degree and has a PhD, right? So there's just like degrees for days. And it's like, Jamie, like what's happening here? And every time Dr. Jamie would come back with the wrong thing, like just Steven had like this look on his face that was like, and I was just like, what? So yeah, we were both like, what is going on? And it's not to say that we were perfect. Like I came back with a potion that like Steven had gotten at some point, so it's not like I played it perfectly. But it was just like, what is happening here?
I will say that this task kind of reaffirmed my thoughts from last week that Jamie could be the mole, because last week I was kind of like, I'm sus of Jamie, and everybody else was kind of like, can it be Jamie? Because Jamie stands out so much and you don't want the mole to stand out. Right. This week definitely reaffirmed my suspicions that Jamie could definitely be our mole this season, specifically with this task.
I think that anyone in this cast would make a great mole. And as someone so Dr. Jamie was the only person who I knew in the cast coming in. Dr. Jamie and I had played in Alex from season 2. Like he hosted an online mole thing, and Alex and I are friends in real life, and he invited me to play. So Dr. Jamie ended up being like the winner of that season. And I think it was like the first the first online reality game that they had ever won. But like they, part of the way that they caught the mole was by thinking like, what is it the mole would look like and what is it that the mole would do? And then like going along those lines. So Dr. Jamie, like, yeah, is no stranger to the series.
Definitely not. Yeah, you guys made love potions, polyjuice potions, and Felix Felicius.
Yeah, when Dr. Jamie was talking about the love potion and their crush for Parker, I was like, what? Because I ship them with Steven. Like, I think that Steven and Dr. Jamie make a very cute couple. So I did not know that Dr. Jamie was like having like a little crush on Parker. I mean, I can't blame Dr. Jamie.
A little crush on
Parker. Parker's so nice. Like the thing about Parker is like Parker gives you his full attention, right? Like when you're talking, like he stops what he's doing and like, puts the phone down or whatever and like pays attention, and it's just like, and takes what you say like seriously. It takes a little while to figure out like, okay, this is a joke, because he's just like, I want to like connect with you. He's just he's a nice dude. He's a genuinely nice guy.
Which is great, because that's so that social play is so opposite of what we're seeing from him strategically, where he's trying to be as cutthroat as possible. And I'm loving that sort of balance that he has.
Yeah, Parker would be a great mole because Parker's like just kind of unassuming, It's he can do both the conniving and the niceness at the same time.
And I think people are also watching their social game right now because they know a Big Brother round may be coming up. So I think everybody's
to go off the classic movie, Big Brother.
Exactly. But that's what I kept saying is I was like, you keep saying Big Brother, guys, but like it's not a movie. So I don't know.
It's not a movie.
I don't know.
It's not a movie.
But go ahead.
I also have written down under Potion's task, charisma team getting called out for breaking rules, ? Because I guess it wasn't breaking rules because that rule was not specified that you could just take all of them.
Yeah, I think the only rule was something like don't throw it like into the woods. Like I think that just so long as the potion remained on the property, I think that everything was legal. So if anyone on our team was like doing anything to sabotage, but like if anyone on any team was doing it, like that would have been legal. And I know like that there were multiple saboteurs in this episode. So like the mole did what the mole did, but the mole also had help on this.
Had many helpers.
Yes, yes.
So the team of Stacy, Lance, and Josh end up winning this task. Yes. And that is a great trio. That kind of sets up that trio to work together a little bit more. As well, Michelle, I think it was you, maybe, that told us about another group that has started working together, which is you, Jeremy, and Nathan.
Yeah, so Jeremy and Nathan are both of them are really interesting guys. Jeremy was the first person that I met that season when Carlo picked me up from the airport. Jeremy was also there wearing like a purple parrot, Legends of the Hidden Temple t-shirt. There's an 1.5-hour ride like from the airport to the cabin. So Jeremy's in the back. I'm sitting next to Carlo, and we have like an 1.5 hours of like it's just us, right? And so this is where Jeremy came up with like, yeah, Michelle talks about, because I was just like, I'm excited and like I love meeting people, and like I'm good in like one-on-one, or like two small group situations, and so it's like, yeah, like let's. And Carlo has a fountain of stories. Like that man has just like such varied life experiences, and I have lots of stories to tell. So it's just a lot of like giggling, and a lot of telling stories. And Jeremy's like kind of quiet during this. Jeremy is the kind of guy who, in the house, there was one night where he and I sat on the back porch and we just watched the sunset over the lake. And we did it pretty much in like complete silence, and some people like cannot sit with like silence, some people just have to fill the void with something, but it's Jeremy and it's me. And like, we're two of the more quiet people in the house. And so we just sit on the back porch and like appreciate like the show that nature is giving us. And I couldn't have had that moment with anyone else but Jeremy. So I felt already like a sort of connection to him. And then when he volunteered as tribute, it's like, okay, like let's get some information out of this. And then as for Nathan, so Nathan was the second person who, after I told the group, like there's a lot of us here and I'm not good in group situations, like I'm much better in one-on-one, like he was the second person to like, who I could pull aside and like talk about. We talked about his time in the ministry and about like his, LGBT like influence on like shaping, and how it shapes like his religious philosophy. And it was just, great. Like I'm connecting with this person. Like I feel like I'm really getting to know him. So I was really excited about the idea of working with Nathan, and both of them would make great moles. Like Jeremy is just such a dark horse and Nathan is just like so clever and sneaky that was like, I want to be close to either one of you, either you're the mole and I'll get to see what you're doing firsthand, or you're a great player and like you are going to pick up on things that I don't. So when all three of us volunteered as tribute, it's like, cool, like let's go to the back porch and like compare notes. Like, what did you answer for question 1 and what did you answer for question 2? And it was a really interesting working session. And Stacy comes out for this. We're like, Stacy, like you can stay. Like everyone else has to leave, but like you are welcome to join, So had I stayed in the game, I think I would have continued to work with like Dr. Jamie and Steven. And I think I also would have continued to work with Nathan and Jeremy. Like those are really interesting pairs in really different ways.
Yeah.
I have a question. This is jumping ahead or back, I guess, either way. When you are taking your mole quiz, Are
Yeah.
you allowed to take notes while you're doing it?
Yeah,
Okay.
which is part of the reason why I take so long on my quizzes, because I'm worried that I'm gonna miss a question, like forget what it is. Everyone else, like, they speed up their quiz times by at the end of the quiz, after they've hit submit, they write down what they think the 10 questions were. You know, I'm just like, oh, let's like write it down as we're going along, like let's tally. It takes me forever to do my quizzes. You can totally write as you're doing it. You can talk to the camera as you're doing it, which I also did. That did not help with my quiz time either, because I was like thinking out loud. Yeah, you can write anything.
Nathan says, Michelle, I would have worked with you too.
I believe you, Nathan. I mean, Sabrina was, I think, your number one, but you know, I think that you and I would have made like a really interesting, unexpected pair.
Let's jump back a little bit. I jumped ahead a little bit because I got really excited about all like the group coalitions forming. Anything else on potions?
Yeah, so they added $20 to the pot, making it $109 then. And as far as house points, wine team did not score any. The blue team scored 60, green scored 70, and orange scored 80. That was all there.
Michelle, you look so happy.
Like, come on, guys, come on. You know, and you look around and you're just like, everyone would have made a great mole. Like, everyone, you know, like even people, like everyone would have, you know, like, okay, like you don't think it's so-and-so, but they totally could have done it, you know, and you're just like, did it come from my own team? Like, did Steven mess anything up? Like, Steven would make a great mole because he's so like analytical and like quiet and like unassuming, and no one would ever suspect it. Was it Jamie? Like, who also is it? You know, and you're just like, I don't know. Did it come from my own team? Did it come from someone else's team? Like, what happened? Yeah, it's how much of it was me, you know, and you didn't intend to do it. Like, yeah, it's
Right.
that was a great task. So great.
I love
Loved
it. Yeah. The next thing that I have written down is Dre leaving fake clues all over the house.
Dre is really entertaining. So at one point, like pre-game, you know, we're sitting around and I was just like, okay, like what are your fake reasons for like why you're here? You know, like why do you need the money? And Dre sighs and he's just like, because I'm so tired of eating 4 for $4s at Wendy's. And I was just like, that is such a delightful answer. Like, I didn't like Dre was one of my favorite people to watch out there because he's just like this great, he's just so sweet and he's so funny. And just that sort of comment I felt like embodied who he was. So yeah, it's bless Dre's heart. It's just leaving these notes around the house trying to get people to do like these idiotic things. It's like none of us believe that the post-its were real, you know, like production is not just going to write like post-its, you know, maybe some season they will, but we're just like, more wild goose chases.
It seems like he doesn't know if it's like working or not working, which is
Yeah.
the funny part. So
Exactly.
I'm excited to see how many more come out and if he's finally like, okay, everybody figured it out. Like,
You got to do things that make you giggle, and like
Yeah.
Dre was making himself giggle a lot.
totally.
Yeah. I'm really glad that we got more Dre this episode because I feel like in episode 1, Dre was probably the person who I felt like I knew the least. So I'm glad we got to see more Dre in confessionals.
Totally.
Okay, so we then have the wands task where the individual task where there were like 2 different ones or 2 parts. One of them was a straight up just wand battle, like laser tag.
Wizard tag.
And the other one was memorizing the movements and names of spells and correlating them with each other. And
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be that way. There's supposed to be a feature on these wands where like like the lights go on a certain way and you're supposed to make the spell like in response, you know, but like these wands, they're cheap whatevers, you know, they didn't work. And so it's like, okay, how can we improvise this to do it in a way where we don't need the technology to actually work? And so that's what it came up with. And I definitely chose to be on the non-athletic part. And I had a lot of fun. I mean, I don't know if I think it comes through in the episode where like Evan and I are like strategizing together and like testing each other. You know, like Evan's just someone who is perpetually smiling, and I'm someone who's like perpetually giggling. And so the two of us, you know, we're just like whispering the spells, like, you know, testing each other. And I'm whispering to him like, faster, bitch, you know, and like, and that dynamic that he and I had just worked because I love people who I can like tease and kind of like swear at, and he was fine. You know, in the first episode, you know, like he would answer something. I'd be like, Evan, like, damn it, why did you answer that? And this one, I'm like, faster, bitch, and you know, and he's just like laughing the whole time, and I'm laughing the whole time. So we had fun with it, but it was good improvisation by the producers who thought the task was going to go one way, and then it totally didn't. So we had to do it a different way. So at the end, Carla was like, okay, Evan is going to the supply shack, and I am going to throw out these wands. So, yeah.
So, yes, we have Evan and Steven winning their trip to the Spy Shack, Spy Supply, whatever. I don't know. I've heard 8 different names for it.
Yeah, none of us knew what it was called. Yeah, and they're both like dangerous people to have powers. They're both. I feel like the power that was used this round was not used wisely, and I don't think that Evan and Steven are going to make the same mistake.
I agree with that.
So we get the introduction of a new power that can be purchased at the Spy Supply called the Gossip Magazine, and this power will allow you to see who each player guessed was the mole on the previous test. Mole test.
That's kind of a game changer. That has the potential to be used really well. It's just a question of like, will Steven be able to do it?
Right, and Steven purchases that. So when will Steven use it? Will it be used successfully?
And that's one that like is, you know, as the more people go on, like you saw in episode 2, the pressure, even though no one had been eliminated, people were like, I need to like narrow down my suspects to just like 2 or 3. And it's like, there's still 14 of us, you know, you know, it's not you, that leaves 13 left. But people were still like, I need to figure out like this episode, like who it is. So some people are going to like start to answer that question honestly. I was just using it as filler of like, okay, like I haven't put a tally mark on whatever, you know, I should put a tally mark in them. Let's just throw in their name, you know, to round out the numbers. Like, but people were like, starting to freak out about their quizzes. So that one is a really great power.
The quizzes are 10 questions, correct?
Yeah,
or are they 20?
With no back button. Boo! Yeah.
And Evan ended up getting stunt double, which was the protection from the Spy Supply items for 3 consecutive rounds.
Which, I mean, can be useful. Like, someone in a later episode is eliminated on a tiebreaker of, like, 0.17 seconds. You know, you never know when, like, an ability like that is going to come in handy and, like, save your butt or not. Yeah.
Yes.
I agree. So, we see lots and lots of coalition and scheming and interpersonal material before we have our test. So one of the big groups that we see coming out right now is Sabrina, Parker, Evan, and Joel. And when I saw that this group was coming together, I was like, uh-oh, everybody else is in trouble because these are power players. They are a well-rounded group. They all have different reaches into different places. I love this group, especially Sabrina, who tells us directly, I'm trying to have coalitions with everyone.
With everyone. So. Oh, yeah. Like, she was actually someone who I did not, because I could see, like, I didn't have coalitions with her or with the returning players, because I was just like, these people don't need extra information. I think that they're, like, people, even if you're first or third eliminated, you're not going to make the same mistake twice. And I was like, I don't need to feed that. Like, I don't, you know, it doesn't benefit my game to give the people who I think are threats, like, information. So I was not going to work with, like, most of the people in that group.
Yeah. And they were brought together because of this round.
Right. Because they were all, they were in the same house, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. All of them are dangerous players. All of them had the capacity to like be good moles and like be strong people on the quizzes.
Yeah, yes. I definitely think if none of them are the mole, they absolutely have the ability to just demolish the rest of the season together.
Yeah.
But
any of them could be the mole. Like, and I would happily pick anyone in that group to be the mole.
Right. And another thing, I mentioned this multiple times last week, everyone on this season is so self-interested. There's no one.
Typical. Alex warned me about that. Yeah.
There's no one on the season whose goal is to add as much money to the pot as possible and be the best team player. All the players on the season, it seems like, are self-interested and trying to sabotage the other players and bring themselves up as much as possible.
Well, I mean, it was really interesting in the sense of like, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. However, in the tribute round, I was the only one of the 5 going, guys, like I did this for a reason, and it was to get information. Like, let's use this as an advantage. You know, like I didn't just volunteer for tribute out of like the goodness of my heart. I did it because I like wanted information, right? Like high risk, high reward. So it was really interesting. Thanks, Brent. It was really interesting to see like the other 4 people, like why did they volunteer as tribute? What was their motivation, you know? So not everyone in the group is completely like self-absorbed or like self, you know, conniving, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Right. What else do I have written down? I have Michelle, Jeremy, and Nathan coalition, but Michelle's running people the wrong way.
You know, it happens, right? Like similar to Lance, I have a strong personality and it comes out in different ways. Like Stacy, for example, was like, Michelle, like you're great, but you sometimes your inner monologue like comes out of your mouth. And she's like, and I wanted to kill you. And it's like, oh, okay. I get the trait from my mother. Thanks, Mom. But you know, like you can't be everyone's cup of tea. So did I like, for example, with Lance, like Lance is a really interesting dude. So before the game began, I flew in like Wednesday. I think he arrived like maybe Thursday, and I had never watched the season. I didn't know who he was. So I'm talking with him and, you know, just like I thought he was on production or something. I was just like getting to know him. And like, he talks about his time as like a flight attendant, and he talks about his time like working as a cast member at Disney, like these really interesting stories. And we're talking about how much we love our moms. And then his mom calls, you know, on FaceTime. And so I'm like sitting next to him on the couch and I'm like, hi, Lance's mom. Like Lance has such nice things to say about you, and I'm like really excited to meet you. And she's kind of like, I don't know who that girl is, you know, but hi, I guess, you know. So like, you know, and I'm teasing him about things like, for example, he put his favorite movie was It Takes Two, the classic by Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, and I just thought that was the funniest thing. And like, so I tease him about that and about like the fanny pack. And like, if you have someone like Evan and you're doing this to them, like they're gonna giggle about it with you, you know. If you're doing this to like a Nathan or like a Steven, they'll giggle about it with you. But you do it to Lance, and Lance is kind of like, are you like making fun of me, you know? So sometimes like you make jokes that are really funny, but like you do it with the wrong person and they think that maybe you like you don't like them. So it happens. It happens.
It does.
But I do all of my teasing with love, and I never dish out like what I can't take. So yeah, Lance, it was all done with love. I was not making fun of you.
I think he knows that. I don't think anybody could see you as a, you know, facetious person like that.
Right.
Well, he was like offended, you know, that like during Porch Talk, I was like, oh, you know. Some other people were like, yeah, I was offended. I wasn't really offended. I was just saying that like to cause drama, you know. But some people were, you know, including Lance, were genuinely like, why? Like, why isn't Lance good enough for this? And it's like, no, Lance, it's not a comment on you. It's just you didn't volunteer as tribute, so you know you didn't do the risk. No reward for you. No reward. You know.
So we do see, as you said, Lance getting a little bit irritated and offended in his confessionals, and then we get kind of a string of a few minutes of lots of scrambling.
Yeah, you know, it's the first real quiz. Like, someone's really going to be eliminated, and no one wants it to be them. No one wants it to be them. So I think that one of the things that the episode did a really good job of was setting up like future alliances, who's working with who and why, which is, I love that. You know, like sometimes you watch a season like Survivor, Second Chances, and every episode, like the alliances change and people just kind of get like voted out and you're just like, I don't know, like why? Or I think it was Game Changers. Game Changers had the massive editing problem. And you're just like, I don't understand why these people are coming together. I think that Carla did a great job of showing who's working with who and why, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. And at some point, we get to a point where Katie feels that she needs to use a disadvantage.
Oh, Katie. So Katie walks in the house. And again, like I've never watched her season, so we don't know who she is. And I go up to her, I'm like, hi, my name's Michelle. What's yours? And she's like, my name is Hades. And I was like, Hades? Like, that's a really interesting name. She's like, Hades? And I was like, yeah, Hades. Like, I don't think I've ever met anyone named Hades. Like, is that your real name? And she's like, yes. And she's basically like, you're friendly but an idiot. I didn't realize that she was saying Katie, not Hades. So that's kind of how I got introduced to Katie. I think that Katie, you know, having been first out on her season, like was just like need to do whatever it takes to not be first out, which again is not to
Mhm.
say that she's not the mole. She could 100% be the mole. She would be a delightful mole. She would be like a really sneaky mole. But you've just some people who are like, and not to mention that like, so behind the scenes in episode 1, we're in kind of like I refer to it as the holding pen, like the bedroom that you sit in until it's your time to go take the quiz, because there's only 2 laptops, but there's 14 of you, you know. So we're in this spare bedroom and getting called up one by one. And during that time, we're discussing obviously who should be tribute. And I was like, I think that the returning player should volunteer as tribute because like they've played before, right? Like all of us are new. Like, you know, it would suck to be eliminated round 1 as like a new person. Like I think that, you know, like the returning player should take one for the team. And Parker and Joel and Katie did not like this. Lance was not in the room for it, but of course he heard about it later. So when Katie's like thinking about like, oh, who should I use the power on? It doesn't surprise me that when she's discussing it with 2 other returning players, she's discussing it with Joel, she's discussing it with Lance, and all 3 of them would be like, well, Michelle doesn't like new players. And I also like, I'm not strategizing with them, you know? So like it made sense on paper. But the reality of it is I take forever on my quizzes. Like I told this to the group, and it's episode 1 where you only have a 1 in 13 chance of being eliminated. Was it maybe the best use of a power? Well, I can confirm that like in that group of 3, you know that like even if you have a winner and a mole, you still have one person who is neither of the above.
Right.
And like that power may have saved one of their tushies at some point. So maybe it was not the best use of a power.
Maybe.
And it sounds to me like the disadvantage that Katie used on you would not have made much of a difference anyway, considering...
No, winner quiz time is 10 minutes.
Right, exactly. Considering what you told us earlier about how long it takes you to do the quizzes anyway.
Oh, yeah. Like, I was going to be eliminated episode 1 anyway. Like, in episode 1, there were 2 people who told the group, yeah, I'll bomb my quiz. Just don't pick me for tribute, you know, but I'll take one for the team. And obviously both of them lied. But one of them turns out to have gotten the worst score. And I was tied for second worst score. And obviously with the tiebreaker, like I'm going to have the worst one.
Sure.
So one of these people who was like, yeah, I'll bomb it. Like they actually like would have gone instead of me. So they like lied about saving my ass, but they really did save my ass. Yeah. I can't be mad about when I was eliminated. I can't be mad. Yeah.
We see that a lot of people are sussing Jamie out now. And I mean, a lot. And I think a lot of the viewers are as well.
Yes, I, being one of those viewers, am very sus of Jamie. Is Jamie my lead suspect for who the mole is? No. Is Jamie my second highest? Absolutely.
I mean, obviously, I can't comment on this. So, like, sip my coffee.
Which I was like,
we have Evan, Sabrina, Joel, and Parker that win the silver screen.
Which was another interesting little film montage.
Yeah, even knowing who the mole is, I don't understand the film montages. They kind of like at the end, you know, when the winner and the mole are revealed and stuff, they kind of go over some behind the scenes thing. Even after listening to that, I still have no idea. Like, but I'm sure it makes sense to someone. I just have no idea. I don't get it.
I have wrote down trees, ballerina, hallway with a flickering light, and then there was a lot of Roman numerals.
Yeah.
So I wrote those down, and I've been trying to figure that out for most of the day, and I haven't been able to. But
I saw the Roman numerals and thought about like pausing it and writing it down, but I was like, I want the authentic experience of being as confused as possible. So I'm
still gonna keep you in the dark because I didn't figure it out. So
okay, good. So yes, we then get to our what is it called? What is it called? Execution. Yes, our execution. We got a lot, considering that we already knew that four people were safe. We got a lot of green screens.
Well, here's what they were doing, right? What they were doing was they were showing the screens of people that had not volunteered as tribute. So when it gets down to like the end, you have 5 people who have not seen their screens yet, right? You haven't seen Steven's or Stacy's or Nathan's or mine or Jeremy's. So it basically means that someone, you know, that suspense of like, oh, shoot, you mean someone who was safe last time, like is actually being eliminated that time? So that's what they were doing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so fun, like, I mean, not fun, but like minor behind the scenes stories on that was they had like a glitch in their program right? So like they type in my name and then it's like program error and it crashes. And it's like, well, this hasn't happened for anyone else. So
Yes.
I think and then they're like, okay, like, you know, they stopped filming, they like fixed the program, and then they came back and they're like, cool, like let's type in Michelle's name again. I was like, so I sat there just being like, yeah, it was me.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, obviously don't tell us exactly what you did on your test, but what was
I
your
know what I
strategy?
did on my test.
What
Yeah.
was your strategy going in? Did you go all in on one person? Did you split it up between two people? Did you spread it out between a lot of people? Obviously, like I said, don't tell us exactly who you went
Yeah,
for. But
no, I know exactly why I was eliminated. So there were two things that I did to eliminate people from contention. One was go off of my gut, my observations, and the other was there was someone who told me before the game began, and we were pretty sure that like people had their assignments, that like X is definitely not the mole. Like they don't really have reads on anyone else. They have a strong read on X, and like X is not the mole. It's like, okay, like that's good. And then like in episode 1, they're like, yeah, like I've seen a lot of X. Definitely not the mole. Don't know about anyone else, but no. And I was like, okay, like that's great. And then like, you know, before in episode 2, definitely not X. And I was like, well, I have no read on X one way or another. Like I don't really know, you know, so I will use this. I will take your information, and I can tell that you believe this, and the person did believe it 100%. And I was just like, yeah. So the mistake that I made was trusting someone else's intuition. I should not have done that. So I had, you know, the pool of people who I hadn't eliminated, which is generally how I tend to play werewolf. I'm a big werewolf player, and like I tend not to find wolves. I tend to find people who are not wolves, and then like narrow it down from there. So someone was like, you know, in werewolf, you'll always have someone who's like, yeah, I don't believe that X is a wolf, and you're like, oh, like I have no read on X, so I'll trust you. Like, oopsie poopsie. Shouldn't have done that. So, you know, I the person was not lying to me. It's just, you know, oops. So, you know, the lesson that I learned was like, you know, play the game your way, take other people's information. It's like, thank yous, but don't treat it as fact, you know, go off of your own set of observations.
Great words to live by.
Yeah.
So when I was eliminated, like, yeah, I had like 0 answers. The person, like, I definitely deserve to be out of the game. Like, nope. I did it to myself. It's fine. I'm not mad.
It happens. So before Zach and I get into sort of our predictions or guessing who the mole is, I guess, Michelle, I have 2 more questions for you, and then I'm sure Zach has a question or 2 as well. Michelle, first question, would you play again?
I think I would, you know, like, so I'm someone who had seen Australia Mole 3 and 4 back in what, like 2008 or whatever it was, and like had never thought about the mole since. So, you know, my friend Alex was like, hey, you should do this thing, and I was like, okay. Like, I am a firm believer in, you know, pushing your comfort zones and like doing new experiences and saying yes to things rather than no, giving things a chance. So it's really interesting being in something like this in the sense that like I consider myself to be a fan of reality television. You ask me anything about Survivor, I know it. Ask me anything about Big Brother, I know it. Like my friends know me as like the reality television person, right? And so I go to something like this and like I think that I'm a fan, and then you realize there's a whole other level to this fandom that you didn't realize existed, you know, where like you wake up and they're watching reality TV, and like then over meals they're talking about reality television, and then like, you know, as filming they're talking about and then when you go to bed they're still talking about it. You're like, oh, like this rabbit hole goes a lot further down than I thought it did. You know, I thought that like, you know, my like couple of hours a day on Reddit or whatever made me a super fan. No, it was a lot deeper than that. So and so would I do it again? Yeah, I think that I would. Like, I think that I love the challenges. I loved meeting the people. I think that the best connections that I made were with the people who could put down the reality television talk, even if it was just for like a couple of minutes, to like talk about their lives and for me to like get to know them. Like, that was my favorite part, as opposed to the other people would be like, yeah, like I live this, I breathe this, like I want to do this for a living, like this is my passion. I think that there's like 2 parts of like how you can really love an experience like this, and I love it as like a, you know, it was a fun diversion, especially like during quarantine and you live by yourself, like in your apartment, and you wake up and you're like, yep, like so in the same place that I was yesterday. So it was fun to like, especially during COVID, to like get out and meet new people and be like, oh my God, I can hug you. Like that hasn't happened in like a year. So yeah, I think I would do it again. Especially like with someone running it like Carlo, who just does it without the ego and with like such the strong leadership. Like, for example, before the season started filming, the night before that I'm supposed to fly out, like I'd asked for the Airbnb link because I just like looking at houses and like I really like, daydream about vacations. And I message him and I'm like, hey, so I know that like we're all supposed to be coming out in, like the next 24 hours. You didn't say anything about needing to bring towels and sheets. Do you really have enough to take care of 20 people? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, well, towels and linens are not provided, so we need to bring our own, but do you have enough towels and sheets for 20 people? And he's like, no. And he like pulls up the contract and he's like, oh my God, you're right. And like fortunately, like his mom's passion is like collecting linens, or
Oh my
something like
gosh.
that. So he has just from his mom enough like for king size beds, queen size beds, full size beds, twist. He has sheets for all of it. And he like goes in and like collects towels. And he's like, well, time to do laundry, and washes the towels like in his house. So he was just like, I think he like single-handedly.
Did we lose her?
I think we lost Michelle.
Oh,
We'll see if
no.
she comes back.
Yes, we'll see if she pops back. Give her just a
Well,
moment.
I guess we can talk about our predictions and such moving forward.
Yeah. Go right ahead.
I have a list of 4 people that I am sus of, but two of them.
She's back. Hold on.
She's back.
There she is.
She's
Hi,
back.
sorry about that. Yeah. So something like that where like Carlo has really excellent like leadership and it was a fun thing and I'm really competitive, as you can see. Like I love, like challenges and like mental things and like games and stuff. So yeah, like I think I would come back. Yeah, I think I would.
My part 2 of that question is, would you play as the mole?
Yeah, like again, like I'm a seasoned werewolf player. So, you can't play werewolf unless you accept the fact that you will sometimes receive the werewolf card. So yeah, I would totally be the mole. I think I would have a really fun time doing it.
Zach, do you have any more questions for Michelle before we move on to our predictions and thoughts?
Yes, if my cat would just stop trying to drink out of this glass over here.
That's what cats do. That's what cats do.
The one thing that I noticed at the end also, there was a message that said basement door opened, entry detected. Is there any little insight you can give on that at all without spoiling? If that has
I think
anything
it was shown.
to do.
I think it's shown in the preview that like there will be some special guest stars. So I think that's what it meant. That like, someone's sneaking into the house. They showed the end, like people will be like, like on the couch. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Just got some new
Yes.
blood. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I wonder what that could mean.
I'm excited to see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say what it is for those who don't like spoilers, but yeah.
So I don't know if it could potentially be those same guests, but we will have to wait till next week then for that.
Yeah, I mean, the Brent made the comment last week that like the show was insular, that it likes to refer to itself. So yeah,
Yes.
if you haven't seen Victory House 1 or 2, you might not understand what's going on, but it'll explain itself eventually.
Exactly. You'll fall right into place.
Yeah.
I did. That's for sure. I watched season 2 and I'm falling right into place now. So
yeah.
Well, let's move forward to predictions, deduction skills. See if Zach or I are a better detective than Michelle was at this point in the season.
I was right about my stuff.
Yeah.
Never listen to other people. Yeah.
All right. So
I'll tell this to my managers.
I have a list of 4 people that I'm sus of. 2 of them I would say I'm very sus of, and 2 of them I'm kind of like, this is something intriguing that I should pay attention to moving forward. My number 1 suspect remains as Nathan. I guessed Nathan last week as my guess. He didn't do anything in my eyes to redeem himself from being the mole this week. And my number 2 remains as Jamie. I didn't see Jamie do anything that would make me think they were not the mole. So we have that. And then my 2 sort of question marks are Dre, because I feel like Dre's causing a lot of chaos, which feels like something mole-ish. And then my last one is Josh, because we didn't see any Josh this episode. And we really didn't see a lot of Josh last episode. So I'm kind of wondering if this is a situation where they're trying to hide the mole a little bit. So I'm definitely interested to see more of Josh. So I would say Nathan and Jamie. Those are my guesses, with kind of Josh and Dre on the back burners. Zach, what about you?
I agree with Jamie. I also have Josh because of the same reason. We didn't see a lot of him, and I want to just keep an eye on him a little bit more, so I kept him on that list. I still want to keep an eye on Sabrina. The fact that I believe even Katie, was it Katie? Yes, Katie suspected somebody bombing in that first episode, and she watched them practice and they got like all of them correct. And then as they kept practicing, it kept decreasing. So I'm going to keep Sabrina on that list right now, just in case. So I just have a 3. I have Sabrina, Jamie, Josh.
Yeah, I would say my 3 are definitely Nathan, Jamie, Josh.
I do as well. I'm jealous. I have a cupboard. I goals is that wall.
Come over
Absolutely.
anytime. I'd be happy to teach you any of them.
Yes.
Well, before we sign off, Michelle, is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
I mean, there's just so many stories, right? Like, there's just so many things that come to mind when thinking about the experience. Like, for example, how, like, you know, in the first round, when we don't have notebooks, like, Stacey's, like, taking notes on her leg, you know? And about how, like, her fun fact in her bio was that, like, she owns a hippo because, like, she's, like, drunkenly typed that, I think, to, like, Jessica and production team. What she meant was, like, I love hippos, but it was just, like, yeah, I have a hippo. And we're like, well, that's an interesting fun fact, you know, or like, for example, trying to, you know, get to know the Jersey boys as Nathan deemed them, and like not really like hitting on anything because like it was a lot of reality television talk. But once the topic of like their tattoos came up, like you want to get to know someone, like ask them about their tattoos. Like both Dre and Josh have like tattoos that are really personal to them, and like they're really happy to like talk about. So you know, like just like cute stuff like that. There's just, yeah, it was a really great time. I am so surprised at like the quality of production and like things like this, and it's just been a delightful experience. I don't regret any of it. And also, if you're eliminated, like if you come to one of these things, like make sure you bring like a book with you, maybe like 2 books, maybe some like magazines, because these rounds take like 3 to 4 hours to like film. And the person who was eliminated after me, I think was just kind of like peace out and like left. And like by the time that filming wrapped up at like 3 in the morning on the first day, it was like, okay, like, you know, now it's kind of bedtime. So yeah, make sure that you like bring a book with you, maybe a couple of books. Because you may be by yourself for a while.
Yeah, because for those that don't know, you know, once you're executed, you really can't, there's no interference with the game. So you can't really talk to anybody. You can't, like, you do have to kind of sit separately from people to, you know, distinguish who's still in the game and make sure that, you know, everything is staying intact. And
I heard that like in prior seasons that may have been an issue, but in our season, everyone was very respectful. Like when you were eliminated, like you were not interfering.
It's always a fear. Coming from somebody that plays these games and also is on production of games. Integrity is always a very scary part, especially in a game like this. So that's where I appreciate episodes that are made, because it really does save a lot of the integrity versus going live on a page and having just the world and America be able to see and influence anything that can happen.
Yeah.
So I love the episode format for that reason specifically, and it looks beautiful to me. But yeah, that's definitely one of the big things is integrity, and I'm glad to hear that this cast has took it so seriously.
Yeah. This seems like it was such a great experience for you, and we're enjoying watching it. And I can't wait to talk to more of your castmates about their experiences as well. Yeah. And it has been so great talking to you, Michelle, and getting to hear your stories and some of your behind the scenes info.
Although I didn't want you to be this first special guest. I really did not.
I don't think anyone did.
Neither did I. I really enjoyed like you kind of remember the confessionals that you give, and then you watch them and you're like, that was like pretty good. Like that was pretty funny. So yeah, I'm sad, you know. Plus, they're all gonna like play games and have fun without me. Yeah, I'm sad.
Well, maybe you'll be back for season 5. Who's to say?
Yeah, like I have no regrets. Like I'm really grateful to Alex for like talking me into this experience. He's someone that I knew, like, he used to live in Cleveland, so he used to be a board gamer, and he knew some of the people that I play in a Monday night group with because he ran a Starfinder campaign for them. And when the Starfinder campaign people in my group were like, we should invite this guy Alex, everyone in the group was kind of like, I don't know if that's a good idea. All they're going to do is talk about Starfinder. And then, but we're like, okay, bring Alex anyway. And Alex comes, and then everyone in the group immediately regrets it because within 10 minutes, he and I both figure out they were really big Survivor fans. And then we just talked about Survivor the whole time, and everyone's like, oh, la 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 la. So I'm grateful to Alex for talking me into this. I'm grateful to, Jessica and Ben and Carla for casting me, and I'm grateful to you guys for doing this. And it was just a great cast as well. Like, I think that the 14 of us genuinely like each other and genuinely like want the best for each other. So
I love to hear that.
It's been a great cast to like watch this with. There's no animosity. Like, we're all, thrilled whenever anything's
everybody loves
Sabrina's
drama,
like breaking out
but-
hearts for everything. Like, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, everybody loves drama, but it's nice when you can actually like get past the drama once the game portion's done and be like, hey, I love y'all, and it was great fun. So
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, Zach and I will be back here next week, same day, same time.
Hopefully same day next week. But yes,
Hopefully
we will
same
confirm
day.
it.
We'll let you know. And we will hopefully have another special guest. If not, then it'll just be Zach and I here chilling. And we are so excited. The season's going great. Hats off to everyone who is involved in production, cast, crew. Zach, any closing thoughts before we head out for the night?
I just want to thank Michelle so much for being here, and great game.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, everyone. We will see you next week.
Bye.